I'm Tanya, and Brandon asked me to come and visit today about adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families. And it's a 12-step, 12-tradition support group focused on understanding behavior and attitude patterns that we develop growing up in alcoholic or other dysfunctional environments. And we focus on trying to understand those so that we can better understand our past and then more effectively restructure our lives today. My motivation in starting the group, it was brought up in the 70s, but there was a group in Brainerd, I think a few years back, but it kind of fell apart. And so when I wanted one, there wasn't one here, and so I decided to start one at Lakes Area, Alano. And my motivation was my husband, Brandon, because both of us are on our second marriages, and, as any of you know, if you're on a second marriage, a second relationship, whatever it might be, you kind of bring stuff from that relationship into the next one, good, bad, and ugly. Great learning lessons maybe, but also just some garbage, And I found that, many times he was like, I'd say or do something, and he's like, oh, you're reminding me of my ex-wife. You're reminding me of my ex-wife. You're acting just like my ex-wife. And I was like, I'm Tanya, not her. Like, I'm me. Yeah, we're both women. We're going to have some probably common things that we do, but I'm me. Whatever I do is me, not her. But then I kind of realized that, he would do something or say something, and it would remind me of my dad. And my dad is still an active alcoholic. And so when he was in his, alcoholism, so it might be something as simple as, oh, this house is a mess. It needs to be cleaned up. I don't hear my husband saying that. What I hear is my dad telling me what crappy people we are and what messy people we are, and we should never even exist. It just all those maladaptive thoughts and behaviors that I developed growing up in that home. And so I didn't want him treating me like his wife or viewing me as his ex-wife, but here I was viewing him as my dad or treating him like he was my dad, and that wasn't fair to him. So I realized I needed more help than what I was getting, and I was going to Al-Anon at the time, so I needed more help than what I was getting there, which is a fantastic program. So if you ever are interested in that, I definitely encourage you to check it out. But ACA kind of goes into the underneath parts of those things. In ACA, as it's commonly known, they have what's called the laundry list, and it's 14 traits that are common to those that grew up in alcoholic or other dysfunctional environments, and I wrote a few of them down here. We tend to be isolated and afraid of people or authority figures. We are approval seekers who typically lost our identities in the process of that. We can be really frightened by angry people, don't take personal criticism very well. We typically become alcoholics or addicts ourselves, or we marry them, or both. We live life as victims. We have an overdeveloped sense of responsibility. I know personally that's a huge one for me. If you're having a bad day, I'm sure it's my fault in some way. Like, I'm responsible for everything bad that happens in the world. We tend to be more concerned for others than we are for ourselves. We feel guilty when we stand up for ourselves or if we don't give in to someone else. We tend to confuse love and pity, and we try to rescue people. We've stuffed our feelings, and we've lost the ability either to feel or to express our feelings. We judge ourselves harshly and tend to have low self-esteem. We tend to be dependent personalities. We are terrified of abandonment and will do anything we can to hold on to a relationship, even if it's unhealthy, just to avoid abandonment feelings. We are ParaAlcoholics or addicts, which means we take on the characteristics of the alcoholic or addict, even if we never picked up a drink or, used anything. And then we tend to be reactors rather than actors. In ACA, we talk about the hard stuff. We talk about that underlying stuff. We talk about abuse. We talk about self-hatred. We talk about dissociation. Couple Thursdays ago, the topic was sexual compulsivity. That's a huge, very, very private topic. Our sexuality is at the heart of our beings, and, to be able to share anything about that, you really have to make yourself vulnerable. And there were 14 people in that meeting. And as each of the 14 people shared, not one person passed, each of the 14 people shared, and it was like magic happened at that meeting, because for every person that shared, those 14 people just held this sacred space for people to talk about something that can be so shameful, that can be so, degrading sometimes, and to be able to be in a space like that and just know that you're safe and you can like open up what is sometimes really, really sore wounds is really amazing to me. So I always just say it was like magic. I remember looking around the room thinking, this is incredible. I have cards to remind myself because my mind kind of goes crazy. In ACA, I think it's really cool because ACA identifies whether it's substance abuse or other addictions that you have. They call them secondary addictions. They look at our primary addictions as like a primary, like internal chemical addiction. So it's the chemicals that go when we're afraid or we're scared or we're excited. So in our households growing up, those chemicals were usually really alive because we're in the fight or the flight mode, we're in survival mode. So we kind of develop an initial addiction to those chemicals. And so what it says is that as adults, when it's absent of those, we look for other ways to find them. So whether it ends up us turning to like substances to kind of help reignite those internal chemicals, or if it's just some other addiction. It can be sex, it can be gambling, it can be everything. Someone the other day was talking about he's like he draws, like he's like if I draw a portrait maybe one a day, but he's like sometimes I draw like 10 a day, and like he's just furious, and he knows he just gets totally lost in that addiction per se. So a lot of people that are, in A or NA can really kind of find some solace in knowing, it's a disease, but there's also this underlying reason for that. It's not just, you're a terrible person or you have this disease. There's a reason for that. And the beauty of the program is, again, we talk about those hard things. We all kind of come with our brokenness, our hurt, our shame, the fears that we carry with us, from our childhood into our adulthood. And in the introduction of the meetings, there's a phrase that says, those patterns infected us then, and they continue to affect us today. So it really is like, like we were polluted or we were, infected with something. And a really key part of ACA is that we don't blame our parents. We acknowledge what happened back then. We acknowledge that it affected us, but we're adults today. We're responsible for who we are. We're responsible for how we act, how we think, what we do, the choices we make. We look at our parents as, essentially people just like us trying to get through life the best way that they can with what they had available to them. Often they also came from abusive or addictive homes. My personal experience, and like I said, my husband was the motivation for me starting a meeting here. But as I said, it kind of went back further into like my dad, and I used to view my dad as kind of a hurtful, abusive, use whatever expletive you want in there, who didn't care about anybody but himself. And with the help of ACA, I've kind of gone from seeing him as this, abusive person to someone just like me who's broken. And I, like anger that I felt for him kind of turned more into sadness for him. I started feeling, instead of feeling hurt by him, I started to feel hurt for him and kind of hurt with him. I've always kind of had a tough time deciphering between like forgiveness and, it's always kind of felt like condoning or permitting to me. But when I could go from seeing my dad as an abuser to seeing him as a victim just like me, to seeing him as a fellow traveler on this journey, as I said, kind of trying to get through life just as I am, I think that might be the first step towards forgiveness, identifying versus blaming versus he's there, I'm here. No, we're sitting here right together trying to get through this. And then having that perspective just really allowed me the freedom to kind of, examine these maladaptive thoughts and behaviors that I've got that, maybe served me as a child to get through those times, but now they're actually harming me more than protecting me. They're getting in the way of my relationship with my husband. They're getting in the way of my relationship with, my stepkids, my family, my friends, anybody. Again, at one time they served me, now they're harming me. And then, if I remember, this is a recovery meeting, so you may know recovery isn't easy necessarily. Sometimes it feels like it's getting worse before it gets better. For me, better includes, acknowledging my triggers, no longer stuffing my feelings, setting boundaries, those sorts of things. They can create a lot of tension in your relationships, and with that, that too can make things feel like they're worse. It was a whole lot easier when I was using, when I was in my addiction, when I was doing, this, or in my obsession. But, through ACA, I've been able to develop new friendships with new people that sit with me in my pain, don't necessarily blame me for my pain. They help me work my program. They validate my healthy steps, my healthy thoughts, healthy habits I have, versus validating the maladaptive thoughts, or, oh, this is so unfair, and then validating that. No, wait a second, Tanya, what's unfair? What are you really looking at? So people that can help me along that journey. And, and I can't not speak without thanking my husband for sticking by me and loving me through this, because again, it creates tension, and we found sometimes when I do what's best for me, it makes things a whole lot harder for him. And so for him to stand by me even amidst that is really important. And he can't do that without understanding it himself, and nor can I do the same for him without understanding it myself. And then I was just going to share, for, again, some of you may be in AA or NA, and I already mentioned Al-Anon, and some people that have gone to all three groups, they kind of say that AA or NA or any of those other such support groups, they help them deal with their addiction. If you go to Al-Anon, Al-Anon helps you deal with other people or with your relationships. ACA, they say, helps you deal with your past or your childhood. So it really, again, gets at all that underlying stuff that underlies your relationships, other people, your addiction, whatever the case might be. And then, as was kind of mentioned just a little bit earlier, there is a meeting on Tuesday nights at 6:30 at Acquire Mental Health, and that is strictly for Acquire Mental Health clients. So if you go there, it will only be clients of Acquire. Then there is one on Thursday nights at Lake Sierra Alano at 7 p.m., and that one is an open meeting, open to the public. We've got a really great group. I mean, we have anywhere usually from 15 to 20 people, and the more people, the more you hear their stories, you hear their strength, experience, and hope. And I can't express how much just hearing them share and being able to identify with them and know I'm not alone, no matter what crazy thought I might have had in my head. I know I'm not the only one, or no matter what experience I've had, I'm not the only one. And that's really helpful. It's actually a key to my recovery. And then I do have some cards I'll give each one of you if I have enough here. It's just got the information for the Thursday night meeting on it, because we've got a website, just some cards to be able to help share and, pass on the meeting to help other people. There is a website on here, and the website is www.brainerdadultchildren.org. You have to type it in the URL. If you Google search it, it doesn't have the search engine optimization, so you have to actually type it in. But there are resources on there. You can download that full laundry list. You can download some other brochures, some information, have a link to getting any literature you want. I think there it mentions like another meeting that's, I think, in Aiken on Tuesday nights. So there's some other information there. There's also links to, we've got a Facebook page, an Instagram page for that meeting. So lots of places to get inspiration and support and help. So that's all I have. Thanks for letting me share with you. I hope to see you at some meetings, because I think I could learn a lot from you.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody have any questions? So Tuesday 6:30 at Acquire on 77.
Mm-hmm.
And the same with Thursday night.
Thursdays at Lake Sierra Alano.
At 7.
Yep, and that's on the card here. And I put actually on the back Tuesday at 6:30 at Acquire for you.
Perfect, because I matched like 10 for 10.
Yeah, there's actually 14, so you might bid them all.
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
sitting at about 84% right
Yeah.
now. So.
I don't know, hopefully it was recording. It probably didn't record any of it, did it?